Everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome to kind of a random video. I was not anticipating making this, but here we are. So, as most of you are probably already aware, it was announced 2 days ago on the Steam forums that Dominions 6 is coming. So yeah, I'm a little slow on the uptake. Don't come at me. No, actually, I saw this day one and I was super excited about it, but I've been super slammed this whole week at work and then with working on stuff at my dad's house and all this other stuff. I have not had a chance to really like contemplate it or do anything about it. So I thought I'd make a video and just talk real quick. One, about the announcement, so that if people haven't seen it, maybe I can let some people know, right? Two, kind of talk about what that's going to mean for me and Dominions 5, potentially, right? And then maybe talk a little bit about Dom 6 and what I'm hoping to see and where we potentially might go as a channel from there, right? So, kind of kicking things off, I'm just gonna read through the announcements real quick. So this is from Christopher. I'm not 100% on the pronunciation of the name. I would assume Christopher, but I don't know. They are from a different country than I am from, I believe. So, IDK. Dominion 6 announcements. They're announcing that Dominion 6 is well underway, and they expect the game to be released by the end of the year. So that is important point number one, right? Released by the end of the year. And if they don't hit that, right, the assumption is if you're aiming for the end of the year, then maybe Q1, right, as a backup plan for next year. Compared to, I really like this next part. Compared to earlier iterations of the game, this one has more changes than any previous versions, both mechanics-wise and UI quality of life-wise. Now, Dominions 5 is my first actual Dominions game that I've played, but since playing Dominions 5, I have gone back and watched old Dominions 4 footage and Dominions 3 footage, and kind of like heard and talked about things from those previous games. So to hear that this iteration of the game has the most changes compared to any previous version, because there were a lot of changes from Dom 4 to Dom 5, and a fair amount of changes from Dom 3 to Dom 4, if I have understood correctly from conversations that I've had. So that is pretty exciting to hear. Both, they do state from both mechanics-wise and UI quality of life-wise. UI quality of life, I think, is a really big thing for me in this game. I love Dom 5. I've played way too much of it. Not as much as some people, but way too much of it. And some of the things that keep me from just, glowing about it whenever I talk about it is the UI quality of life, right? Like, it can be a very fussy, stuffy, kind of like hard to pick up style game. Once you're invested in it, it's fantastic, right? But it can be hard to do that. UI and quality of life are things that are really useful for those types of situations. And then obviously always interested in new mechanics. The game is already in good shape, and most major changes are implemented, but they intend to add more stuff in the upcoming months, so that's pretty cool. And a Steam page will appear shortly, where more details will be present. That Steam page has not arrived yet, so I'm actually really excited to see a Steam page for it, because obviously, right, like the idea is that when we see a Steam page, we're gonna see either clips or images of what Dom 6 might entail. And as we see more of that, we might be able to extrapolate how big are these mechanics changes going to be? How big are these UI quality of life changes going to be? Is Dom 6 going to look like Dom 5, be Dom 5, but with different mechanics or additional mechanics and improved UI and quality of life? Or is Dom 6 going to look as different to Dom 5 as Dom 5 did to Dom 4, etc., etc., right? So very interested in seeing how that all goes. I say that, but if you actually take images from Dom 5, Dom 4, Dom 3, and they're just clear images without any UI or quality of life, there's a lot of similarities between the games. The art has evolved, but anyways, I'm going off on tangents. Super fucking exciting, right? Like, very, very cool. I put a lot of time into Dom 5, had a blast with it. Dom 6 coming around the corner at the end of the year is very exciting. What does this mean for this channel, right? And for me, multiplayer specifically. Right now, just due to the schedule that I've had over the course of the last year or so, I really can only do one multiplayer game at a time. Or if I balance it just right, I can do like a multiplayer game that is in the end game and a multiplayer game that is just starting and kind of eke that out. The issue with that scenario, though, is that a multiplayer game that is at the end game and a multiplayer game that is just starting, I might go through 30 turns of a multiplayer game that is just starting in the time that it takes 5 turns to go by in an in-game scenario. So it can, if I'm not careful, it can very quickly turn into a situation where I started as one multiplayer game in the in-game, one multiplayer game just starting, and now I'm in a 2 multiplayer games in the end game, and I just don't have the time for that on my schedule. So right now I'm very much in this kind of like scenario of one multiplayer game at a time. I have not been uploading. I do have a currently active multiplayer game. I have not been uploading those multiplayer videos yet. I am working on them. I had a death in the family recently, which has taken a lot of my time. So that is coming. I'm also working on things in a different way, hopefully adding a little more production value to things. So we'll see how that goes. Fingers crossed. So as that happens, we're going to get more Dom 5 onto the channel, but that game is still ongoing, and it's July, and it's very much a scenario of, depending on how long that game goes, it could be September, October, November, hopefully not December, by God, before that game resolves, right? It is in the end game, but it is kind of it's a massive game, and it's kind of an early point in the end game. So it's entirely possible that that game continues going for several more months. My position in that game doesn't seem as if it's going to be a situation where, oh, I can just write it off anytime soon. But who knows? That might change in a couple turns. We'll see. But basically, what I think that means is this might end up being the last multiplayer game that I have for Dominions, or the last like competitive multiplayer game. I might jump into something that's just like for shits and giggles or whatever. But this might end up being the last competitive multiplayer game for Dominions 5 that I play, depending on how things turn out and depending on how things are going with Dom 6. Because I don't know that I'm really going to want to, come September, October, November, if this game ends, I don't know that I'm going to want to jump into a new Dominions 5 game if Dominions 6 is right around the corner. And I have a feeling that that might be the case for a lot of people as we get towards the end of the year and we get maybe like a firmer release date. We might see kind of like a trailing off of new games starting as people are kind of like waiting for Dom 6 to hit. So I think this is going to be a pretty interesting time in the Dominions community. So kind of looking forward to that. Kind of want to see how people react to that. I'm very interested, right? I think everyone's very interested to see if Dominion 6 is going to have any improved quality of life when it comes to hosting multiplayer games, right? Like, are we going to continue to have to rely on the things that we have relied on in the past? Or is there going to be any native support in Dom 6 to just host multiplayer games and have it be an easy peasy situation? We'll see how that goes. I don't know. Fingers crossed. But yeah, there's a lot that is potentially up in the air. So what that might mean is, from a channel standpoint, I should have uploads for the new game going in the next week or two, probably. Fingers crossed. Definitely within the next month. And once that stuff starts to happen, this might end up being the last Dom 5 multiplayer game that is going up on the channel, depending on how long it takes and how things resolve. So, obviously, like, if a week from now, I get killed in the game and I can start playing a new one, I'll probably jump into a new one. So we'll see how that goes. Anyways, the last little thing that I wanted to talk about real quick, I'm not going to go super in-depth because there are other people who have done more in-depth videos on this topic, the idea of what do you want to see in Dominion 6. And I talk about little things here or there constantly about what I would like to see in Dominion 6. But, so, like, I think one of the things that most everyone wants to see, aside from hopefully AI improvements, is more diplomatic options in the game, right? Especially from a single player standpoint, but even from a multiplayer standpoint, there aren't any real diplomatic options. You can trade stuff to people, but that's it. You can't establish any sort of like alliances. You can't, buy peace with the AI. You can't. You can trade provinces after a fashion, but there's no like in-game simple like selling of provinces or anything like that type of situation. There's a lot of potential room for improvement as far as like diplomacy goes, so I do hope we're going to see more in that vein when it comes to Dominion 6. Obviously, they already said that there's going to be more UI quality improvement or quality of life improvement, that type of stuff. I'm really hoping with that enhanced UI comes enhanced reporting. There's so much that happens in the game, and a lot of it just flies under the radar, and you're never given actual information on who died in this firestorm or how did this particular magic phase situation play out, right? Like, sometimes things just get lost, and it would be really nice to have more particular information when it comes to the reporting side of the UI. So I'm hoping that that's going to happen. And then I personally am really looking forward to, hopefully, more diverse options in the late game for a gameplay loop, basically. I do feel like the late game stales into a couple of particular metas outside of mods, right? But, don't get me wrong, there are hundreds of options, but most of those options still fall into, like, one of 3 categories, whether that's Doomstack, whether that's, efficient rating, or whether that's Magic Phase super combatants or Magic Phase combat tricks, right? So all of the little kits and caboodles and concepts and things that you can do all kind of like fall into those various different things. I would love to see different mechanics where, I don't even know. It's entirely open to the air, but like, I've talked in the past about like gameplay mechanics that allow you to improve the quality of your actual troops, right? Like being able to invest resources into a tech tree or upgrading that type of thing, right? Like that seems cool to me. Being able to do things like dump gems into like a power pool and then be able to manipulate that power pool into doing something else like grand magic or high magic or some other random shenanigans, right? Like that type of thing. There's a lot of, I think, potentially interesting ideas, and I've heard a lot of people talk about things. So before I drone on for 50,000 years about this, I'm going to go ahead and end this video, but I do want to know, I want anyone who's watching and interested, I'd love to talk about what people would love to see in Dominion 6, right? Like, and specifically I'm talking, obviously, let's talk about, like the idea of diplomacy and AI improvements and things like that, but I really would love to see people's ideas for like gameplay mechanics that are different from Dom 5. Not just improving what Dominions 5 already is, but what could Dominion 6 offer that is different, like honest to goodness different mechanic wise for Dom 6 from Dom 5. So if you have any ideas or anything like that, I would love to hear it. If not, cool. I'm super excited. Very, very eager to see what happens. Really want to see what they put out when they make the Steam page. So fingers crossed that that's all super neat. That's going to be it. We'll have more Dominions 5 content in the near future. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.